Welcome back to the Dabbleverse Nightly Roundup, where we cover everything that is the Dabbleverse. This includes Stuttering John's pathetic life that has been nothing but a comedy of errors. Tonight we hear an interview from a disappointed guest at John's poor attempt at throwing a reunion party for former Tonight Show employees that had went to group therapy from working with John and getting PTSD. In tonight's story, we talk to an anonymous guest at Stuttering John Melendez's Tonight Show reunion party, which was a comedy of errors and empty promises. In an event that can only be described as a spectacular flop, failed comedian Stuttering John Melendez and avid drooler attempted to throw a Tonight Show reunion party, promising guests commemorative keychains and a night of nostalgia. Neither was delivered. However, the reality was a pitiful turnout was what he got, because none of those invited even remembered who he was, and most thought he was just a overzealous fan of the show because he sat in the fourth row in the audience every show. A series of hilariously disastrous incidents even worse than those of his life, culminating in a drunken rendition of The Doors' Roadhouse Blues and a questionable drive home. Stuttering John Melendez, hoping to relive his glory days, organized what he billed as an epic Tonight Show reunion party. Invitations were sent out with the enticing promise of commemorative keychains, but as the night began, it was clear that things were not going according to plan. But let's be honest, when John plans something, it always fails, so no one was surprised. However, little Timmy Johnson was celebrating his birthday party next door at the Chuck E. Cheese, and John grabbed all of the kids and brought them to the party to make it look like a bigger crowd. "I showed up expecting a crowd and maybe a cool keychain if that even really exists," said one of the few guests who attended. Instead, there were like 5 people, and no sign of any keychains. It was pretty awkward. John told the so-called crowd to write down their name and address, and he would mail them the keychain. But we all know that he wants our addresses so he can squat in our houses, sleep on our couches, and eat our food. This party was so sad that the promise of commemorative keychains were a key selling point to try and get people to attend, but guests were quick to notice their absence. "John kept saying the keychains were on the way, and FedEx screwed me and the dues payer stole them," one guest recounted. "It became a running joke among the handful of us there. We were like, sure, John, just like the crowd is on the way too, just like the A-list guests are coming to that sad excuse for a podcast he does every day." As the night dragged on, Melendez sought comfort in alcohol, as he does on his failed podcast, and since no one showed up for him to talk to, the kids he stole from the birthday party realized that John was a loser and got out of there quickly, but did refer to John as the homeless animatronic as they left with their parents. His mood shifted from disappointment to boisterousness as he downed drink after drink. It was thought at one point that the bar may run out of alcohol because of John. It wasn't long before the conversation turned political, and since John is cheap, he didn't rent out the whole bar, so he had the unknowing patrons to scream at. John started ranting about Trump, another guest observed, laughing. He was like, "Trump is the worst thing that ever happened to me because he stopped giving me free stuff after I left the Stern Show. Doesn't he know I am a celebrity?" It was funny at first, but then he got really heated and really pathetic. John kept yelling, "I deserve free stuff," over and over. Not content with just political debates, Melendez soon shifted his focus to his former Howard Stern Show colleague, Shuli Egar, who he also calls the dues payer. He went off about Shuli being Howard's favorite, a guest said. John was yelling, "Shuli got all the good gigs while I was the butt of every joke." It was both hilarious and kind of sad. He also kept yelling I was Howard's friend, not the dues payer, so why did I have to heat up his baked potato and turkey every day and not the dues payer? In a move that surprised no one familiar with his antics, Melendez decided to take the stage for an impromptu performance, much to the chagrin of all of the patrons in the bar. He announced, "This one's for my true fans," and boos rang out from all over the bar and someone yelled, "Get off the stage, you stuttering bastard!" John launched into a horribly off-key and drunken version of The Doors' Roadhouse Blues, being played on an air guitar by John since he couldn't play a real guitar if his life depended on it. On a side note, reports came in from Jim Morrison's grave that the ground was shaking because he was rolling over in his grave repeatedly. "It was like watching a train wreck," the guest said, still chuckling. He couldn't remember the lyrics, he was slurring his words, and people started booing almost immediately, but John just kept going, totally oblivious. We all came to the conclusion he was doing this to torture us all. After his failed performance, Melendez continued to drink, despite the dwindling number of guests, but since there was only 5, no one really noticed. Eventually, it was clear that he was in no condition to drive, but that didn't stop him from attempting to leave. On the upside, at least, he was no longer singing. He was swerving all over the place as he headed for the door. "We joked it was the Coors Light shuffle," the guest recounted. "We tried to convince him to take an Uber, but he kept crying, 'I'm broke,' so the crowd started a GoFundMe account for his Uber, but only $2 was donated. It was like watching a bad episode of a reality show." News of the debacle quickly spread, becoming fodder for fans and critics alike. Social media lit up with reactions ranging from concern to outright amusement. "John needs to get it together," one commenter wrote. "This isn't just funny, it's concerning." "Classic John," another quipped, "turning a reunion into his own personal roast, and those keychains? How pathetic. What are we, 12? Stuttering John Melendez's failed Tonight Show reunion party will go down as one of the most comically tragic events in recent memory. From the empty promises of commemorative keychains to the drunken arguments about Trump and Shuli and the cringeworthy rendition of Roadhouse Blues, the night was a perfect storm of chaos and comedy. While the event didn't quite achieve the nostalgic celebration Melendez had hoped for, it did provide those few who attended with a night they won't soon forget, and a story that will be retold with equal parts laughter and disbelief. Many people were left asking themselves, how long will it be till Stuttering John is podcasting from a refrigerator box because he is homeless? Thank you for watching the Dabbleverse Nightly Roundup. Please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you can hear the latest hilarious news from the Dabbleverse and Skull.